This is a Platinum Explosion special where myself and Ciaran are replaying The Last of Us and discussing our adventure ahead of The Last of Us Part 2. Today, we're talking about Chapter 3 and Chapter 4. That is the Outskirts plus Bill's Town. This is probably a lot longer than the time we talked about last week. I'd say the overall playtime of this is, I don't know, like around 3 hours worth, I guess. I don't know. Like, I feel like it's a little bit louder than previous ones. But we'll talk about the Outskirts first. So playing through the Outskirts kind of builds up the tension a bit more. You run into more enemies through this section, a lot more infected. You run into your first clicker here. So I want to talk about them first, because even though we're both playing on easy, I gotta say, yeah, which is solely because, by the way, people, in case you don't know, you can play games on easy if you just want to have a chill out time, you know?
If you just want to play something for the story and you just want to get through it. I was joking with I saw my dad earlier today, and my dad plays everything on easy just because he's old and doesn't have the reaction times or whatever.
But it makes time easier. Like, who's got the time? Like,
yeah, exactly. Who's got the time to invest everything?
Yeah.
But I was making jokes about him. I'm like, because Dad doesn't like playing stealth areas. He just runs through shit, killing everything. Mm-hmm. And I'm very much like in this game. When stealth breaks down, I used to pretty much just auto-fail the area because I'd have to just restart and try again. This time it's like, I'll just pull the shotgun out and just blow everything away. And there's a billion ammo everywhere. We're fine.
Yeah, it's fine. It doesn't matter. Yeah, so playing this game on easy is I wouldn't say it means you can run around like you got infinite health, but it does certainly make the stealth sections a little bit easier. But I also found it interesting that I still found running into clickers for the first time still like quite scary, and I was like straight away just like trying to stealth them all, even though I'm like maybe like, but then I'd look at my ammo and I'm still like, I've only got like 8 bullets. I probably still do have to try and like stealth this section. And I got fucking headphones on, and then just like the noises they made, I'm like, I forgot clickers are scary.
You do get enough materials. Generally, whenever you kill a clicker, there is enough materials to replace the shiv that you use to kill them, generally somewhere nearby. So I've slowly got to the point where I'm like less and less worried about them, because I'm like, I'll just use the shiv now and then I'm good.
Yeah, I forget if they do grab you, you get that. As long as you've got a shiv, you're good.
Yeah, as long as you've got a shiv, you're okay. You're A-okay, you're fine.
You will survive, yeah. One other thing I wanted to point out during this outskirts section here in the lead up because a lot of this section level of the game is obviously just combat as you work through to get to the drop-off point for Ellie. But there's a room where you enter eventually after a while. I can't remember, near the end here or something. Couldn't remember where I was, but I wrote down my notes. Where Ellie mentions the events of the Left Behind DLC, which I never picked up on the first time.
Is that in this bit? I thought that was in Billstown.
It could be in Billstown, but whatever.
No. Sorry, I'm thinking of the arcade machine towards Billstown, which is a little bit different. Because she talks about I can't remember the girl's name from Left Behind in that section.
Oh, does she? I missed that interaction then.
There's you're missing those. Oh, Dylan, you're ruining everything. God, you're just trying to motor
interesting because, as I said last week when talked about it, I never played it again after the first time. So I played through the whole game once, obviously, and then the Left Behind DLC came out after the game. So I played that a couple of months when that originally dropped on PS3. But I haven't replayed the game ever since playing the Left Behind thing. So now then when she starts talking about that, I'm like, oh, that's the thing. Yeah. That's the thing. She's mentioning the thing. Like, that's a thing. And by the way, yes, we will be talking about the Left Behind DLC in a couple of weeks. Gonna drop it I'm dropping it in at a point that I thought, like, if I was turning this into a movie or something, it would like thematically kind of work out there, kind of thing. So anyway, right. So let's talk about the big thing in the outskirts, though, which of course is the end. You finally get to the point where the Fireflies are supposed to meet up with all of yous and do the drop off point. I think obviously if you're even if you're playing the game for the first time and you're working your way through it and you're actually looking around, you can find a dead Firefly at some point who's got a note like, make sure the girl's okay and all this sort of thing. It's like you're finding a dead Firefly. You're like, things probably aren't going to work out well for us here as we continue on. And of course they don't, because when you enter the meetup point, all the Fireflies are dead. And then Tess reveals that she was in fact bitten at some point within the next hour or so. And you have this whole scene play out where she pretty much pushes Joel to do the job, like deliver Ellie to the Fireflies. And I think even more, I'm noticing it even more playing it this second time, is that I really think it's interesting how they underplay Joel and Tess's relationship. But also I feel that if their relationship isn't as close as it is, even if they're underplaying it heaps, but it's like they are just like really close. And I would say, obviously, I think, romantically involved.
There's
but
definitely.
They just say they don't get into it in the game because I guess it's like, well, what's the point? Like, there's no time for this. Does it really matter? Is it really affect how it emotionally affects Joel? Not really. But it's like when Tess dies, and the fact that Tess is suddenly 100% on board as like Ellie obviously has a chance to create a cure and all these sorts of things. The only reason I say that Joel even pushes on with trying to deliver Ellie is it's all for Tess. Like the rest of the game is for Tess, really, at this point.
I think at this point, for the next, until Ellie and Joel's relationship
grows
more and more, then it's about that. I think, but yeah, definitely at the moment, it's Tess told him to do it. So
he still very much is like, I don't believe. Like even shortly after this, when they're in the infected area and she doesn't have a mask on, and he's still just like, how are you able to breathe this? And she's like, I wasn't lying to you. Like he's still sus, consistently sus, and obviously doesn't believe in her being a possible way to find a cure. Whereas Tess was sort of automatically on board by the fact that she wasn't infected straight away. Whereas Tess was already, as she points out, like she's like, this is from an hour ago. Look at my fucking wound. Hers is from 3 weeks ago.
That for me though is really, because I don't remember. I think the first, when I originally have played this, I've always thought that Tess got the bite before the game's event started. Like I always thought that she had the bite since before she ran into Joel at the start of the game and whatever. And then to have it this point where it's like, no, so that bite must have happened in the museum at some point,
somewhere around there.
And yeah,
possibly
which kind
with
of
the one she was fighting off. I don't know, like when they got split up or something, probably.
Yeah, exactly. So it's interesting, and I don't think. I guess there is definitely subtle ways you can be like, oh, okay, yeah, she's definitely trying to, push Joel towards Ellie and stuff a little bit more because she knows she's a goner. And I think, and even just the moments afterwards where Ellie's trying to console Joel about it, and Joel's just like, shut up, don't talk to me about Tess. Don't.
He's like, here's the rules. You don't bring her up. We never talk about it again. You do what I say. Now shut the fuck up. Like, let's go. It's very much like him still just being like, I don't like this, but I'm going to, that's what I'm saying. Like, it is like, I'm going to see this through because of Tess, but also I'm a big, tough, burly man. And I don't have time to talk about my feelings of you fucking little girl I only met 12 hours ago. Like, that's what we're doing. Let's get on with our mission here. But yeah, I just think never noticed it so much the first time playing it, but the second time I'm like, really, most of this game is solely for Tess, which and Tess is a character that I suppose a lot of people sort of forget about in the overall bigger Last of Us picture, because by the time you get to the end of the game, everyone's like, all these other characters, and Tess is like, oh, this is she dies so early, but I'm like, she's really important, really, for Joel. She's the whole reason that Joel continues on.
Yeah, so. And you can see that even throughout it, and like there's a moment that, I think it's post the part where she would have been bitten, where she's talking to Joel about maybe after this one we can have we can go somewhere quieter and just kind of be. And Joel's very taken aback by that and very...
He's like, you never liked that idea, you wouldn't do that. And she's like, well, maybe this time I would, or maybe I will be down for that this time. Yeah. So once again, kind of hinting at there being something more to their relationship, I guess, than just
definitely
duo
buddies or partners or
in
whatever.
Crime or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, so then after they escape, of course, they run off. You do a little bit of an underground subway section or whatever, introduce you to the stupid mechanic that'll be picking up and floating Ellie across the water, which one thing I'm getting annoyed about this is kind of making the game show its age is A, that being a thing, and then also B, the amount of fucking ladders and like planks and all that sort of stuff. I'm like, please, part 2. None of this. None of this plank shit.
The planks do die down later in the game. I do.
I think you'll be surprised.
Really? Because I remember that being a thing where it's like kind of they start building trust between Ellie and Joel, and then it changes how the game plays out a little bit because of it. But yeah, I guess so.
We're still a ways away. But there's like one point in Billstown where it's like you go up this section early on, you start climbing up onto the roofs or whatever, right after you get the bow. And there's like a section where you climb up and you're like, oh, I need this plank. So then you have to climb back down, grab the plank, lean it up against that section, climb up, grab it, turn around. I'm like, why? What is this teaching me?
I remembered to put the plank up before I climbed the ladder the first time. So, big brain.
But
memory.
Still, it's not the first time you've done it at this point. So I'm like, what is the point of all this? Like gameplay wise?
Just to be more just have more kind of puzzly moments, I guess.
It's not even a puzzle.
I don't know. It's like making you like kind of live in the world and having to make do with what you've got.
There's just too many of them. It's one thing that never annoyed me the first time I played it. I remember seeing people complain about it when the game originally came out. I had a friend at the time who was like, oh, game's overrated, fucking combat isn't that good, and the older planks and stuff, ladders, like bullshit. And I was like, yeah, you're a fucking idiot, whatever, shut the fuck up. But now I'm playing it this time, I'm like, yeah, these damn planks and stuff. I suppose it is just, it makes it feel a little bit old because I feel like if this came out now, people are like, what the fuck? I would be like, too many.
The thing for me was like coming off playing a zombie game like Days Gone, there's times where I'll start aiming and then I'll try and use Days Gone's like focus feature to slow everything down to line up shots. And Last of Us doesn't have that. So I'm like, crap. And I've already like messed up and like there's a clicker on top of me or something. It's
One thing I do feel like Days Gone helped teach me better, which is Molotovs are really great. Because I've got so many really sections where I just throw a bottle, send them all over there. Yep. Molotov, get them all, burn to death. I'm like, cool, Molotovs are the best weapon in this game.
Same thing. Or I also did it with the nails, with the nail bomb.
Nail bombs, yeah.
I did the exact same thing. So it was like, it's like, adapting to know. And I guess those options of like Molotovs and nail bombs and stuff, I guess weren't the most valid options if you were playing on like harder difficulties where it was.
I'd probably always save them because I'd be like, I really need this later.
I'd either save them because I need it for maybe later, or I'd be worried that I'd make more noise by doing it that way and then have to worry about dealing with everything else coming around us. But
I'm like, no, I got to stealth everyone. Can't waste Molotovs.
But
I'm playing on easy. I'm like, it's fine.
The annoying one was I was stealthing at one point and I think a clicker came like kind of close to me, but I was like staying still and it just started turning away from me. As it started turning away from me, Tess stood up and shot it. And I was like, okay, that's just all right.
To be fair, I was probably very close. Maybe she's like, I'm saving your life.
No, I was like, I'm good. Just chill. Just chill.
So Billstown begins in this very lush green area, which when I was playing for it last night, if you can line up to find out when I was playing this by looking at my Twitter. But I did tweet out Joe because I found it so funny that walking in, Ellie's like, oh, this is so great. And Joel's like, what? And she's like, oh, this green, I've never seen it before. It reminded me of Rave from Force Awakens where she's like, I didn't know this much green existed in the galaxy.
Yeah. I do really like the... I like this lead into Billstown. It's a really nice change of pace considering the end of the Outskirts where you're kind of go running away from
they
fireflies.
Need to calm down. They're like, here, just everyone take a second to chill.
Just chill down. You can stroll through this section. You can walk your way around this little street and explore this and find the safe code and stuff like that. I think it's nice that this game. I think this game gets its changes of pace down very well, where it slows down and lets you take in the world for a second before you're, thrown upside down and you've got to take a minute to shoot all the clickers right there.
Well, yeah, it which is exactly what it does. It's like, hey, let's calm down, walk through the town, find all Bill's booby traps. Do some world building, story building with Joel explaining that when we finally get to Bill, just shut the fuck up, Ellie, because he's a very paranoid person. You'll see just everyone shush. And then, finally you walk into that room and get thrown upside down. And so, okay, things back up to 100. Off we go again. Start running. So let's talk about Bill, obviously, because he's the main character of this whole section of the game. His relationship with Joel and Tess is never really explained, other than the fact that he owes Joel's favors for something. I guess it's sort of implied because they are smugglers. that they probably smuggled stuff for Bill in the past, or
I think
sort of
Bill
thing.
helped them smuggle stuff as well. Because there's a note you find in one of the rooms about him needing to gather more pills because Tess will be there for another run soon. I think there's a couple kind of... I think this part especially shows some really interesting environmental storytelling, telling the story through the notes or through different things that are in the world at the time that make you kind of see exactly what's going on.
Yeah. Well, you'll miss a lot of stuff, I guess, if you don't read the notes and find these extra things. And then it's also, I thought, interesting, to kind of back up what I was saying before about how important it is that Tess believed in this Ellie cause, which is that when Joel's talking, like, Bill keeps pushing, where's Tess? And then eventually, of course, it's also funny to point out that by the time you leave Billstown, he still has no idea Tess is dead. Joel never actually explains what's happened. Like, he still just doesn't want to talk about it. But there's that point where Bill's like, when Joel says that this job was actually Tess's idea, and then Bill's like, oh, I didn't think that she'd be so dumb to take this sort of ridiculous job or whatever. So kind of just to back up the point that her belief in this really says something for her character. And I think that also backs up the point of, like, Joel just kind of trusting in Tess, and is like, well, her dying breath was to kind of finish the job, so I'll do it. And then I think that, of course, the other big thing with Bill is that when you eventually arrive at Frank's house, his deceased partner's house, and then you can find a note in the back of the room, which, of course, if you miss out on some important information here as well, which is that the note just says, hey, Bill, I doubt you'll find this because you never come on this part of this town, but if you find it, I was trying to run away because I was sick of your shit, you fucking paranoia, but I guess you get the laugh last now because I did get bit while I was trying to leave, but anyway, fuck you, like, so, like, it's very blunt, and then Joel never, like, gives him the note, even if you pick it up or anything like that. In fact, it doesn't matter what you do, find the note or not find the note, Joel in the last moment still just says, hey, man, about Frank back there, I'm sorry, that's a big deal. And then Bill's like, cool, we're even, bye. Like, it's funny, like, all the characters in this game, when it comes to, like, talking about their potential loved ones, are just, everyone's got to be like Timmy Tough, like,
everybody's
yeah, cool, bye. Fuck you.
It's just like for them, it's, I guess, it's been 20 years living in this world where they've probably got to the point, especially these two, where they believe that emotions get you killed, like making rash emotional decisions get you.
Oh, that's what Bill believes, 100%. He's going on about, I used to have a partner, but it got in the way, like.
Yeah. And that's how he copes, is just trying to make it like that. And,
try and tell him that.
And I think it's underlying the relationship between Bill and Frank. I think it doesn't out and out tell you what their relationship was, but it's very
obvious. And it's one of those things that ever since the game came out, people are always like, oh, it's implied that they're gay. I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's just I think it's very obvious that they're gay, but the game doesn't go out of the way to like spell it out in a sort of unnatural storytelling way. But I'm like, by the time you get to the end of the level with all the talk about my partner and the way he looks upset and reading the note and all this sort of stuff and the bickering and back and forth, it seems, between two of them. And if that doesn't do it for you, and then you get in Ellie's car, they get in the car and Ellie's like, oh, I stole this gay porno mag from Bill. A gay porno mag. Yeah. And then she makes jokes about this, the page has been sticky. I'm like, if at that point you're like, it is weird they imply they're gay. I'm like, imply? She's looking at a magazine, but like, oh, how's he walk around with that thing?
Far out.
But 10 years after the game's out, people are still like, oh, it's implied they're gay. I'm not sure. But Bill's an interesting character. I kind of wish we had more time with him because there is obviously a lot to him, but I guess the nature of the game is you do run across characters, and we're going to run into more characters when we talk about them, but it is like you bump into them, you talk to them, you spend a chapter with them, they leave, some horrible stuff happens to them, blah, 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 blah. We're going to bump into some more characters very soon where some messed up stuff happens and then they kind of disappear, and I've always been like, well, what happened? I'd love to know more about their story prior to when we met them, but also, like after sort of thing, but just the nature of the game.
Very much so.
And then, of course, the other thing in this chapter is the introduce of the game's first boss fight, the Bloater, which I remember the first time I played this on not easy difficulty. I found this to be, I was like, this shit is
Incredibly
hard. Playing
This
on
time,
easy, I was like, you're dead already.
This time, I didn't even get attacked by him. I threw 2 Molotovs in his direction and he burnt to death.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, sweet.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah. So it's lucky the concept for this segment isn't talking about the difficulty of the enemies or the fights, because
and if you're like listening to these, like you've listened to the 2 segments the last couple of weeks and you're thinking, oh, I'd like to play The Last of Us again, but I don't have the time to invest in it.
Easy's way to go.
Easy is 100% the time and the way to invest it. It's a couple hours. Even if you're doing it with us, it's probably 2, maybe 3 hours tops. I did it over 2 nights where I kind of did the first segment, paused it and came back to it. And yeah, you don't like, it literally throws materials at you.
Yep,
like I am always like stocked up on shivs and every other item, and then I'm max on them when I'm.
I run into crafting materials. I'm like, oh fuck, I can't pick this up. Oh wait, I'll craft something real quick. I've got max of everything, so I can pick it up. Like I'm constantly having to make sure I've crafted stuff so I can have space to pick more stuff up.
It's not a thing to worry too much about, and I think it makes the experience, even if you're not you're not trying to be like the most gritty and realistic for the piece experience. It's just playing it for the narrative to give you some. Because I will admit, so far, there's been a lot of stuff I've forgotten about The Last of Us that have not been like I didn't remember that you ran into Frank hanging in that house.
Oh, really?
I could not remember that at all. So there was just bits and pieces of the game where I just don't remember them. So it's just nice to have that refresher leading up to The Last of Us Part 2, where we don't know what's relevant or what's important, but it's still nice to have that connection still fresh in your mind.
Yep, for sure. Well, that'll do it for this week's Last of Us replay talk. Next week, we'll be talking about the 2 chapters, Pittsburgh plus the suburbs. So basically playing right up to kind of the chapter before we finally head over towards Tommy's area, sort of thing. That's spoilers. Anyway, we'll see you then. Bye-bye.